Hey y'all, welcome to Transparent Combos. Today I have somebody special sitting right alongside with me. And who may you be?
Her husband.
That's me, husband, y'all.
Joseph Jones.
Mr. Jones. Me and Mrs. Jones got a thing going on. See, it just flows, it just rings. Now don't put it all together like the song, because we're married, unlike the lyrics in the song. But however, we want to share just our heart with you, share some things about who we are, how we met, our lives, ups and downs, the journeys that we've been through. So starting off, I am, you know who I am, but if you're new to this channel, then maybe you don't know who I am. My name is Arnda Jones. I am 54 years old. I am married, been married for 35 years to
Mr. Jones.
Mr. Jones. And we have, how many children we have, husband?
Two girls.
And?
We have 2 grandchildren.
Yes, we do.
1 boy and 1 girl. 1 of each.
Yes, we have 1 of each. Grandson, 15, and granddaughter, 2. Now, how did we meet? Who gonna tell that?
I guess I will.
Go ahead.
Well, I had some friends of mine when we was in high school. They was telling me one Monday, we was on the bus on the way to school. They said, "Hey, Joe, man, there's some girls be coming out here, man, from out the Clear Lake area, man. They be out here on Sundays." I said, "Oh, okay." So I said, "All right, well, I'm gonna swing by one day." So, just so happened, one Sunday I rode up on that 10-speed. That was back in the day. A lot of you older people gonna know what I'm talking about when I say a 10-speed. The younger generation probably like, "What's that?" No scooter. We had a 10-speed bicycle. So after that, I pulled up. I saw them and everything, and so I was like, "Man, who's that? Who's that girl there? She kind of cute, bright skin. She had a little hair pulled over one eye, things like that." But so I kind of checked her out for a while, so they was going to the movies or something like that, but I didn't go to the movies. I stayed back and got on my bicycle. I left my phone number for her. I left that phone number because back in the day we ain't have cell phones. Pages weren't really quite on the scene just yet. But I left my phone number and I told my sister, I said, "Hey, this girl gonna be calling me, so let me know." So time went on.
Wait, hold on, husband. Because did you mention how old we were?
No, I forgot.
So I was like 15, 16. I was with my friends. And one of my friends, we were at her boyfriend's house. He knew my best friend. It was my best friend in high school. He knew my best friend's boyfriend. So that's why he was over there. But the part he forgot to tell y'all, which is a key part, I was with my boyfriend when he was trying to get my attention. Okay? And so anyway, because we don't want to sit on that too long. So that's how we met. Like I said, I was with my boyfriend. That ended up not working out. When that didn't work out, then I pulled out his number and I gave him a call. And we talked for not long, maybe like half of a summer. And he just disappeared, y'all. He ghosted me. He totally disappeared. And we ended up meeting up again, maybe like the next 6 months, I think, maybe something like that, at a club. Yes, I was at a club back in the day, the Rhinestone Wrangler. Those from Houston, Texas, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You were supposed to be 21 and I was 16.
She was fast, y'all. Back then it was 18. I don't think it was 21.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe it was 18. He's older than me. He's 2 years older than me. So he was, I guess, able to get in legally, but I wasn't. But anyway, so ran into him at the club and it's been on ever since. Okay, so then what are we going to talk about after that? After that, I was 16. You was 18.
I wasn't 18.
You had to be. If you're 2 years older than me.
I was 17, y'all. I was 17.
Okay, he was 17. He said he was 17. I said he was 18. Anyway, he was 17. Dated all through the rest of high school. I got pregnant my senior year in high school. I'm going to post some pictures. I'll share some pictures of our journey so you'll kind of see the different phases we went through. Okay, so I got pregnant my senior year. I had her in September. So I had just finished school, had her in September. In January, he went to basic training. He went to the Army. He came home in, I think, like June, July?
May.
No, May. Duh, right, May. He came home in May. But he called me, y'all, to tell me that from basic training that they were going to send him, after basic training, they were going to send him over to Germany. And if he was not married, when he went to Germany, he would have to stay there for 3 years before he could even come home. If I'm married, when I go to, in Germany, then I'll be able to bring you and, our daughter. And I'm like, oh, okay. He said, so that would be selfish of me. Listen, 18 years old, this is what he said to me. That would be selfish of me to ask you to wait on me for 3 years. And I said,
that was that game, y'all. That game.
Whatever. And so I was like, okay, so what that's supposed to mean? Well, so he ain't never asked me, y'all. That's how our proposal went 35 years ago. He didn't even ask me to marry him. He just told me what was going to happen. And I said, okay. And so he came home and we got married like within 2 weeks, y'all. We put it all together, got married at my mama's friend house in her backyard. And if anybody has ever heard of Kathy Taylor, she's a local gospel singer, but she's known. She sung because Kathy Taylor was like my play mom when I was like a little girl or whatever. I was raised up across the street from her where she was her parents' house. And so she sung at the wedding. Y'all, somebody made my dress like in 2 week. Child, we threw it all together. But whatever, we still married 35 years after. Ain't paid that much for no wedding. I think we had barbecue. Somebody barbecued.
About 1,500.
Total, okay? And anyway, we've never renewed our vows because it's just not that serious to me. I don't know. Is it serious to you? Yeah, because I don't want to pay for it. So we can find other things to do with that kind of money. So now you heard we were married. I was 20 when we got married. So that means you were what, 21, 22?
Getting ready to turn 22.
Yeah, getting ready to turn 22. We had the one daughter. Lived in Germany. How long we was in Germany?
Just about 4 years.
Almost 4 years. And so he decided that was going to be the end of his military career. He was going to give 5 years, and that was it. So the last year that he was in the military, that the ending of that 5th year, they sent him. They were going to station him in California. And I said to him, well, if it's going to be a year for you to be in California, me and the baby, we'll just stay home. I'll go back home to my mom's because I knew I was going to be a cosmetologist. And so I said, it's going to take me about a year to get my cosmetology license. So when you get through in the Army, that was the plan. I'll be finishing up beauty college and then we can live happily ever after. And we did exactly that. And he came home. He was, discharged, honorable discharge from the military. I was through with, got my license and went on, started working. He went on, started working. I'm trying to think. We had our second child. So when we came back to the United States, the youngest one was maybe like 6 or 5. She must have been like about 5 because she was starting like elementary. And then we had our second daughter, 6 years. They're 6 years apart. And at that point, we were living in an apartment. What were you working at then?
I was working at I was working with Harris County
First
Sheriff's Department, and then after that, I went back to.
What were you doing at the Sheriff's Department? Because he wasn't a sheriff, so what?
Started off as a CO, correction officer, down there on Baker Street.
Okay, he was a correction officer. And then your next job was?
I went back to driving trucks.
Oh, yeah. Right.
I went back to driving trucks because they had a mass layoff. If any of you people know out there, Wayne Docefino.
Y'all remember
the cause
him?
of me losing my job at the county, mismanagement of funds. So I had back then it was commercial driver's license. So I know my youngest child was on the way. So I said, let me get back into transportation, something steady. And the money was great. So I went back that way and
go ahead.
and then so I just went ahead, got back in and stayed in.
Then we had our second daughter. When we had our second daughter, that's when you was at Grundy.
Yes.
Okay, he started working at Grundy. And then we decided to buy a house.
Yes, when we found out that she was pregnant, then we said, okay, I said, let's go ahead and get us a home so we can raise our kids in a home where they are, have decent schools to go to and things like that. So we tried it the first time, and by me just starting out with Grundy, I'd only been there maybe 4 months. So they told me I needed to be there a year on my job. Mm-hmm. So once a year was up, I went back and then we started the process.
And so I think I was about 26 maybe. And so that means you was about...
No,
I was 25?
You was 24. I was 25.
Okay. Well, there you go. And we built our first house. It went great. The process was smooth. Then after that, we stayed there 10 years. And so the reason why we moved from there, I skipped a whole part of us. Let's talk about the lows, because we didn't talk about the ups. Everything sounds great, right? Well, after about 15 years of marriage, I wasn't raised in church. He was, I wasn't. So I didn't have church knowledge. I went to church with my friends, but I wasn't going and paying any attention or nothing like that. So I didn't have the church etiquette. I didn't have church knowledge, none of that. Did my mom talk about God in front of me? Yes, but it wasn't like in front of me like that. Like I would say it was for him, but he had an issue. So he wasn't, that happened when he was coming up in church. He stopped going to church. But anyway, when we stayed in Germany, we found a church. In Germany, we was going to church there on post. Came back to the United States, and me and him both was like, we want to raise our children in church. So we went to the church that my mom took us to for like Easter, like those kind of occasions. We went to that church. And we ended up liking the church. We joined that church. So he was very active. I was very active at the church. We was, progressing, moving well spiritually. And so it felt like to me that there was a little snag with him. It felt like to me, I'm just telling you what I felt like as his wife. Because we've always been really, really close. We've always done everything together. It just felt like I was taking 10 steps forward and he was taking 10 steps backwards. So that's where the break to me came in. The disconnect came in for me. Now, somewhere around maybe being married, maybe about 10 years, maybe, the situation at the doctor. That was about 10 years of marriage, maybe, at that point.
Something like that.
Yeah, about 10 years of marriage at that point. I go in for my well woman exam. This is called transparent convo. So I believe in telling the whole story and not half the story. Went in for my well women's exam. It came back abnormal. I had chlamydia. And I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. What is that? I wasn't even aware of what that was. And so, of course, I had a conversation with him. He said it wasn't him. And I know for sure it wasn't me. And we went to like maybe 2 counseling sessions behind it. Anyway, we moved past it. But let me put a pin there and share this, what I believe happened. I was not aware of that then. Because keep in mind, at that time, I'm what? Like, maybe early 30s? Maybe late 20s, early 30s. So and then keep in mind, this has been years ago because I'm 54. Like the knowledge that we have now about, going to therapy and being in tune with your emotions and your feelings, we wasn't doing all that back then, okay? We was not aware of it back then. And so what I believe started to happen is in the back of my mind, I believe I still didn't trust him. We moved forward, but I think there was still like an emptiness, like a void, like something that was never resolved. And I think that's how the enemy like set a foothold within myself. I didn't know none of this back then. Keep that in mind. And so anyway, moving forward, like I said, it felt like to me, I'm taking 10 steps forward. He's taking 10 steps backwards. He wasn't really going to church anymore. And me and the girls, like we still going to church, serving in church, all of that, all the things. And it felt like we were becoming really disconnected. And I went to him and I had a conversation with him about it. I was honest with him. I don't feel appreciated. Back then he had a mouth, honey. He could use some curse words a little harshly. And I had a conversation with him about that. I don't like the way you talk to me in front of the girls. I don't like the way you talk to the girls. So it was a buildup. Let me just say that. Is that a reason to leave your husband? No. Now, I didn't know that then, but I'm telling you today, no. Well, anyway, so that happened. He said he was going to do better. And it just felt like to me, we were still drifting further apart. And so I didn't realize how vulnerable I was during that season of my life. And I remember going to this grocery store that I frequent on a regular basis. Went there once or twice a week. So happily, I went in there that one time and there was a guy who recognized me, called me by my maiden name. And I'm thinking, whoever know me by because I've been married forever, remember? Whoever know me by my maiden name, that means you know me when I was young, like a kid or high school or whatever. And he did. We went to high school together and I would just have conversations with him about, you know how you have conversations with an old classmate. Nothing I tried to make out of it. Went home and told my husband, whatever. He can squinch his lips if you want to. Went home and told my husband, oh, I ran into this guy that I went to high school with and da-da-da-da-da, because it wasn't nothing. I'm trying to tell the fast version of it. But anyway, needless to say, remember, I'm in a very vulnerable state. I'm steady going to my husband. I went to him several times for him to try to understand that I just felt like we were being disconnected and I didn't feel appreciated and all of that. And he didn't look like he was trying to get it together to me. Just saying. Okay. So anyway, so the dude, he slid right on in. He did. So for all of you that's in relationships, husbands, wives, it go both ways. Both ways. Let me just say this to you. The enemy will always present an illusion. It looks like the real deal, but it's really not. The devil, he studies us. He knows exactly our weaknesses. He knows what we think we need. And so, long story short, I end up leaving my husband. I did not leave my husband to be with that guy. I left my husband because I was tired of feeling unappreciated. And I was tired of the way his harsh lines of communication. I was sick of all of that. Because in my mind, I'm a great wife. I wasn't a perfect wife, but I wasn't the kind of wife that ran the streets. His house was always clean. I'm always going to cook. I was having sex. I mean, I'm doing everything I thought I was supposed to do to satisfy him. I would even ask him, is it anything that I'm doing, that you not satisfied with, something you want me to do different? And he ain't never got no answer. So I'm thinking I'm cool. All I do is go to church, go to work. I'm making money. Like, what's the deal? You know what I'm saying? And so I had just had enough because I was like, I deserve better than this. My girls deserve better than this. I was raised in an environment that was very abusive and I refused. Now, he didn't put his hands on us, but verbally, he had some harsh language, and I wasn't going to allow my girls to experience that. Anyway, left him. He stayed in the house. He took the car from me. I didn't even have a vehicle. Went to go stay with my mom and her husband. That didn't work out. It didn't work. I think we stayed there. I don't know. We stayed there a good week, child. Because she was so mean and ugly to me because she was mad because I left my husband. I was not with my husband. Because that's her son, baby. You can't tell her nothing about my husband, okay? And so anyway, so then I had never, listen, y'all, remember how young I was when I met him. And moved from out of my mama's house to Germany. Like, my life took off really fast. And I had never purchased a car in my own name. I had to go find an apartment for me and my babies. I had to go buy a car for the first time. Like, I had to do it all. And I got a 1-bedroom apartment because I didn't want anybody to help me. I didn't want to have to call nobody and say, can you help me pay no bills? Because this is my responsibility. I did it. I left. And I'm going to take care of it. And that's what I did. We were separated. Listen, he filed for the divorce first. And then when I found out about it, I went and got an attorney. When I went to get my attorney, I'm trying to think what happened then. Oh, we ended up going to court. Yes, we went to court. For anybody who's separated from their spouse, restoration is possible. We went to court. It was like our first meeting in front of the judge.
Establishing child support.
Establishing child support. That's what that meeting was all about. And it's a lot to that story, y'all. And like I said, I don't want to be on here forever. There was people who tried to pour into me. I didn't want to hear it because I didn't want him. And I forgot to tell you, did I start dealing with the guy once I left my husband? Yes. He was very busy because he was like a supervisor, manager at his job. And because I removed my children from their dad, not being in the same house, that they would still go and, be with him during the week because, he would help me out because I was a stylist, had a bunch of clients during that time of my career. And so I was working like really late, you know how that goes or whatever. And so they spent a bunch of time with him. And I knew that I was not going to sacrifice the time with my kids to go be with no guy. So the only time I would spend with him is when they were in school, like in the middle of the day, if he was off during the week or something like that. And so we didn't spend a bunch of time together, thank the Lord. And so I just was getting convicted. Y'all, I couldn't do it no more. We were never intimate. I wanted to because I've been with him for so long. So I wanted to experience another man. Just to see what it's all out, like what it's about out there. I guess, I don't know. You hear other women talk about it. I was like, okay, well, let me see. Now I'm out here where it didn't happen as the Lord would have it. I am more than grateful that God did not allow that to happen because the one time that we were together at my place, I was on my cycle. So nothing happened. Anyway, again, moving fast forward, I was feeling convicted. I was tired of feeling convicted. And I was like, and one day I clearly heard from the Holy Spirit say, either it's going to be me or him. Well, you ain't got to give me another opportunity to answer that. And I was like, oh no, he got to go. And so I just broke it off, cut it off. And it was coming to an end anyway, because my husband don't drink and don't smoke. And I'm over here with a guy who drink, and he drink a lot. And I was like, oh, I'm not going to be with no man, because that doesn't work for me. And all those years ago, he was smoking cigars, and it was like, I ain't got time for that. So I got out of it. That only lasted like 3 months. The next 5 months, I just spent that with just in the presence of God, building my relationship with God. Wasn't seeing nobody, could nobody say nothing to me, because I'm trying to get my life together. I'm trying to get a house for me and my babies, because my babies came back and told me, Daddy's put the house on the market. He didn't even tell me, y'all. Anyway, and so one day I went to this lady at the church where we were attending. She had her own real estate business. I was told that she will help you repair your credit, and because I had some credit issues during that time. So I went to her with the intent of her repairing my credit. She did not repair my credit, y'all. That woman found out that I mentioned to her that me and my husband were separated. And when he sold the house, I knew that I was going to get a nice, profit from the house, my portion. And I wanted to restore my credit so I could buy me and my babies a little house. Well, what did I tell her that for? Well, as the Lord would have it, I was supposed to tell her that. That woman poured into me like nobody had ever poured into me. I left that woman office feeling weak and defeated and beat down. And I went and laid prostrate before the Lord. And the Lord dealt with me. And the Lord told me as I lay prostrate before him concerning the situation, me leaving my husband. And the Holy Spirit said to me, I don't deserve the right. He was talking about me. I don't deserve the right to leave my husband. He said, you were not patient with him. And you have not been all that I require you to be. And I'm still patient with you. And I said, oh, when I tell y'all that cut me like a knife, baby, that cut me up. And so the Lord started showing me all the areas. It was like visual pictures in my head. He reminded me of all the times that my husband had been patient with me. And I was not patient with him. And so we'll probably have to come back later and talk about that, because it's a lot to unpack even in that. And so as the Lord would have it, he started to change my heart. The entire time that we were separated 8 months. The entire time we were separated, I still covered my husband in prayer every single day. I didn't want him, but I wanted for him to be the best person that he could be. The man that God created him to be. That's what I was praying for my husband. And some kind of way, the Lord started to turn my heart. He most definitely had to turn my husband's heart, because what I forgot to tell y'all, he didn't even talk to me. He hated me when I left him. He had nothing to do with me. I couldn't call him and ask him not a question about our girls. He would block, honey, he had nothing to do with me. And so, like I said, I'm really fast forwarding this. And so we end up getting back together. And when we got back together, he told me, he said, my attorney said at any point with my clients, go ahead and tell them, because it was your attorney who told you.
So my attorney told me that anytime with his clients, he do divorce paperwork. But if a client and the spouse reconcile, then he refunds you all your money back except for the court fees and the paperwork that he's filed. So at that point, I talked to my lawyer, and he told me, he said, hey, you can come by the office and pick up your check. He said, I always pray for my clients because, I understand that it's a messy situation sometimes. Unfortunately, yours wasn't. So, I'm going to wish y'all the best, but I do have your check here for you.
Oh, and then something else. He also said, when my husband called to tell him that we had reconciled, he said he had just got on his desk, our divorce was going to be final the next week, y'all. And the Lord always got a ram in the bush, honey. Even when we don't see the ram, he got a ram. And so anyway, so we got back together, end up buying another house, because we did sell that house. The house sold fast too. And we bought our second house. We stayed there 10 years. The reason why we sold the second house is because we take a lot of pride in our house, y'all, in our home. My husband, he gonna make sure the outside is very well manicured, and I'm gonna make sure the inside aesthetically is absolutely beautiful. The neighborhood started going down. They end up building how many lease houses, baby? Rent houses?
About 50.
So we built this house. House number 2, we built it. They end up, and this was not a part of the plan when we first went to this community. They built, I think it was more than 50 rent houses, which of course is going to make your property value go down. So we sold the house. During that time, you were working where?
Post office.
He was at the post office, driving trucks for the post office. But he always had in his heart that he wanted to have his own 18-wheeler. He wanted to have his own truck. And so we sold the house. That second house didn't sell fast. We moved into an apartment like we did the first house, because we take our time. When we sell our house, we believe in taking our time to find the perfect house, the perfect side of town. At that point, we were looking for good school districts for our kids. Like, all of that was very important to us. It was a priority. We sold the second house. At what point did you leave the post office? Before we sold the house or after? Why? I can't remember.
I left the post office before we sold the house. Before we sold the house,
okay. And so he got his own 18-wheeler, making a bunch of money, y'all, doing really, really good for about how many years?
About the first 3.5.
About the first 3.5 years.
3 years.
Okay, so at what point did we try to go apply for another house?
It was about maybe...
About 2 years?
I don't want to say.
No, it had to be about a year.
I think it was about a year.
So after being about a year in, we went and applied for a mortgage loan and got denied. And we were flabbergasted. Could not believe we got denied. His credit is absolutely amazing and he making a ton of money. And they said, what happened, baby?
They said that I had too many write-offs.
So what happened is we didn't know this. So if you don't know this, as an entrepreneur, self-employed employee, when you work for yourself and you're applying for a mortgage loan, and most self-employed people, you can have a bunch of write-offs. So let's say, for an example, let's keep it like easy. Let's say you made $100,000 and you had
$50,000 in write-offs.
$50,000 in write-offs. Well, when you go apply for a mortgage loan, they're going to only qualify you for $50,000 as your income, not $100,000. We didn't know that, guys. So that's why we couldn't even get approved for a house, because basically he made this much money because he had a lot of write-offs. As a truck driver, he had a lot of write-offs, and he keep all his paperwork, honey. He keep every receipt you could ever possibly think of. And so anyway, so that's what happened. And so now we in an apartment, 2 years.
3 years.
Then his business started going down and down and down. So now a bunch of money is not a bunch of money anymore. He ain't making that much. So it's looking pretty rough. And so even with that, we end up, as his business was going down, I'm the one who creates the budget. I'm the one that pay all the bills. I knew, guys, that we could no longer afford to sustain his trucking business. I knew that.
Because of the fixed income. I mean, the fixed amount every month of the budget. Because, when you have your own business, you got a fixed amount of, I got a brain freeze. A fixed amount of bills that has to be paid regardless if there's any money coming in.
Yeah, you got to pay for that truck insurance.
Yeah, truck insurance.
And I was self-employed. Remember, I'm still a hairstylist, so that means, and we had kids that was still, under 26. Duh. So we needed insurance. So back then we had Obamacare, which was very expensive. I think truck insurance was like $1,100 a month. Obamacare was like $900 and something a month. Mm-hmm. And at one point that was like a breeze, and maintenance on his truck, tires and gas. Oh, honey, it was a lot. And so, like I said, I knew that we no longer could sustain his business, but I could not tell him that as his wife, because I knew how important it was and how much my husband's business meant to him. And so I decided to use his credit cards to sustain our bills and his business. Let me say his business first of all. And I talked to him about it, and he was okay with it because we were trusting God. We were serving strong in church. We were faithful tithers. We was confessing the word. We was fasting and praying. We was doing all the things that we were told to do. At the end of the day, we'll talk about that another time because we ain't got time to talk about that. And we was confessing his word. We was doing all the spiritual things in the natural. And his business still would, with the intent that his business would recover, and that we would just pay off all that debt that we had put on his credit cards. Then the pandemic happened. No, the pandemic hadn't happened yet. I'm sorry. Let me take it back. So anyway, at some point, y'all, we couldn't sustain it anymore, paying the credit cards. We had credit card payments like $500 a month. There's no way possible we could sustain it, because now my business is taking a hit. I'm not bringing home as much money as I was bringing home. So me and him both, neither one of us making a bunch of money. And it's like, Lord. So needless to say, we forfeited his credit cards. We're not able to pay it anymore. When I tell you I had a spreadsheet, y'all, trying to pay it, baby, spending every quarter that we had, because we knew we wanted to get a house, and we are, we are responsible people. Like, we are people of integrity. We need to pay this debt. It's ours. But we just couldn't do it anymore. So then that means we in an apartment, because now credit bad, right? How many years? 3 years. Another year go by. Now me and him both are working for a church. I wasn't making a bunch of money. And what's your thoughts, husband, about you working at the church? About salary-wise?
Salary was sustained. It sustained us. That's what the salary did. It sustained us.
Did you take an increase or decrease in salary when you worked at the church?
I took a decrease.
Right.
I took a decrease. Like I said, it sustained us. I'm gonna put it like that, and that's why I'm gonna leave it. It sustained us, and so during that time, as this was sustaining us, when you work for yourself, you're always looking, okay, I got to get back in to, where I'm comfortable, where I can have, have excess, live in overflow. So after about 2.5 years, that's what I started doing. I needed more, because I'm not the type of person, I'm not just gonna settle. So I wanted more, and I knew that I can obtain more. So
when you say more, what are we speaking of? More what?
When I say more money.
Well, tell the people what you're talking about.
I'm talking about more money. I needed to make more money because everything is going up, and I knew where I was at. The things that I wanted, I wasn't gonna be able to do that, not on that income. So.
Oh, I forgot to tell y'all. I forgot this part. You had your trucking business for how long?
4.5 years.
4.5 years. He sold his truck, and then that's when he got the job. So, because I forgot to put that little tidbit in, and that's when he got the job at the church. I worked at the church for 1 year. The pandemic happened. I was considered a non-essential worker, so they put some of us on furlough. They put me on furlough. I was one that was on furlough, but I heard from the Spirit of God not to go back. And for reasons, they know the reasons. The leaders of the church, they know why I did not go back. But my husband was still working there. And then you said you was there how long?
2.5 years.
2.5 years. And so by now, we're in an apartment now. How long? About 5 years at that point?
5 years.
About 5 years, y'all. We're in an apartment. Did not see that coming.
No, we didn't.
At all. You could have never paid us $1 million to think that we would have been in an apartment that long. And we still in an apartment. Not now, but we were still in an apartment at that point. And then we just started buckling down. We just started to say, okay, you know what? Let's just try to take on all of this debt. Y'all not going to believe it. The debt ended up being over $100,000. Because when you start including all the late fees and all the interest that was applied on it. Now, let me just say this. The majority of that was interest, late fees. We had charged at least probably about $30,000 to just try to sustain his business. But that's not including the interest that they applied to that and all the late fees and all that kind of stuff, right? Did we use some of his credit cards for pleasure? Yes. It wasn't nowhere close to no $30,000 though. I would say maybe about $15,000 of that was pleasure. Like I think we probably put on a credit card, maybe like a trip, maybe like a Gucci purse, like that kind of stuff. But it wasn't no bunch of money. And so anyway, but I just wanted to put that out there because like I said, we believe in being honest. And so the whole $100,000 was not just behind his business, sustaining his business and trying to pay some of our bills. Because by the time the pandemic hit, remember, I'm not working, so I'm not bringing in any income. Now, they were like at the time given the unemployment was like increased or whatever during that time. But when all that was over, I didn't have income coming in. And so that's why we got further and further behind. pretty much. And then at that point, I started like, I think a couple of times I put like our rent on his credit cards because I mean it had got rough financially. It was really rough, a bad struggle. And so anyway, he left the church and you went, and what did that look like when you left the church?
Once I left the church, I got back into transportation again, and went to a job, to get my feet wet, to see what has changed, because anybody who drives trucks will always know that the laws, the regulations, everything is always changing with transportation. So I went back, got with a company, Teamsters company, and stayed there a few months, and I wound up leaving. And once I left, I got to another.
Why did you leave?
I left there because of it wasn't really a lot of money there, and I knew the company probably was going to close because of the financials that I was able to pull up and see what was going on, and also with the negotiations going on with the contract. They never reached an settlement on the contract. So at that point, me looking forward, I knew that wasn't going to work. So I said, let me leave now. So 6 months after I left, they closed the doors. So at that point, I went on back to another company. And once I got over there, a few months I was in, they asked me that I wanted to become a trainer, an instructor. So I told them, yeah, I would do it. And everything worked out good.
Was that an increase in salary? I can't remember.
Yes.
Okay.
That was an increase in salary. Yeah, nice increase. And so I think I stayed there right at, 2 years?
Mm-hmm.
And so as I started sitting down, looking at life and realizing that when I left the post office, my total years with the government was 20 years. So I had a friend of mine work there with me. He said,
well, hold on, baby, because okay. So let me kind of interject a little bit. So I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you, when I went to go work for the church, I was still a cosmetologist, but my business was not so great. So I retired as a cosmetologist, and stayed out for, I think, 3 years. And then I went back. So by now, at that second trucking job that he's working on, now I'm back as a hairstylist. So now, fast forward.
Guys I work with from the previous job that I left, they said, hey, Jones, let me back up. I think I got ahead of myself. Can't remember, so I'm going to fall back. So as I was saying, I had a total of 20 years with the federal government. So at that point, I sat down and I was talking to my wife, and I said, I ought to go back to the post office. So lo and behold, a couple of weeks later, guys called me, hey, Jones, post office is going to be hiring again for tractor trailers. I said, okay. So the first time I didn't apply. I said, nah, I don't think I want to go back. I was happy where I was at, and things like that. So then a few months later, fast forward, it came open again. The guys told me about it. So I told my wife, I said, they hired. So she told me, she said, go ahead and put in an application just to, we never know what's going to happen. So I put in the application, and probably about 2 weeks after that, hey, I started receiving them emails. They started coming quick. So, this was like on one Thursday, they called me and said, hey, you can report to work Monday. So I called her and told her, hey, I can report to work Monday. And she was like, it's moving fast. I didn't think it was going to come this fast, but it did. So anyway, lo and behold, when I went back, I started doing everything, got back in the swing of everything. And
okay, hold on, husband. You went back when?
Went back in November
November
2024.
2024. Okay, hold on. So you were still. So anyway, y'all, hold on, husband. Don't forget where you was at. So year 6, we in an apartment. Remember, I told you we started trying to tackle his debt over $100,000. We went to go apply for a mortgage, and the loan officer said, "Have you guys ever considered filing bankruptcy?" And we was like, we didn't want to. So we went and talked to the bankruptcy people. Y'all, bankruptcy didn't even work for us. We had that much debt. I was like, Lord, who gets turned down for bankruptcy, right? I never wanted to file bankruptcy because I just kept telling my husband, I said, baby, this is our debt. And his income had really increased, like tremendously. And so I said to him, this increase that we have, let's go ahead and start tackling this debt. And so, but when the loan officers talked about bankruptcy, I said, I don't really want to file bankruptcy. And he was like, baby, we'll be forever trying to pay all this debt off. And so bankruptcy didn't work, like I just said.
It didn't work because, you have a means test. And the means test depends on your income. So at that point, I'm bypassed that. So that wasn't going to work. The only other one they had, I think, was going to be a chapter 13. So I knew I wasn't finna be on chapter 13 and had to, let my money go somewhere else for 5 years, So I was like, nah. So we decided to go ahead and tackle it head on, and we did. Ooh, y'all, it was rough. Oh, it was rough. See these cute little fingernails? Honey, I snatched them nails off. We was not playing. We stopped going out to eat. I think we went out to eat maybe every blue moon. We was going out to eat like once a week. We didn't go on vacation. We wasn't buying nothing new unless we had to. You know what I'm saying? Like something where you just got to go buy it. But other than that, no, we're going to wear what we got. We wasn't going to church because we had not found, I forgot to tell you, we end up resigning our membership from the church where we worked at. And so we were visiting churches, and it was like we just could not find a church home that fit us and what we were looking for. It took us how long, baby, to pay all that debt? We paid it, y'all. We paid it all. Oh.
Okay, I think it would end up being like $150,000. We end up paying about $80,000, y'all. About $80,000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like half. So we settled with the creditors and all that kind of stuff. Like I said, we took every extra penny we had. We ain't had no birthdays, gifts. We wasn't doing none of that. We were serious. And when God knows that you're serious, then guess what? His promises will start to manifest in our lives, y'all.
Because you got to take responsibility. And once we took responsibility,
doors started to open.
When I was calling and doing some negotiations,
mm-hmm.
I mean, I would come up with some crazy numbers, and guess what?
They accepted it. Like, let me say, for example, let's say he had a charge off of, he owed a debt of, let's say, $20,000. I think out of $20,000, somebody took like $6,000. So it was like God's hand was all in it, all over it, all on it, all the above. And that took us a little over a year, to do that. And then we went back to apply for a mortgage again. So by now, y'all, we didn't apply. And so it was 7 years before we bought this house. This house y'all see right now, it was 7 years that we was in an apartment. I know we applied at least 4 times for a house, y'all. And did not get it to this last time. The last time we got approved, husband, did it happen quick? First of all, we wasn't even going to get like an approval because we still had some more debt to pay off. We went in thinking, well, just tell us, what do we need to do? We need a plan of action. How long is it going to take us? What else we need to pay off? That's how we went to try to go get some information, and the people talking about we're approved. What happened?
I think it took about a week and a half.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
And I'm talking full approval, underwriting and all that.
Everything.
And with house number 1, we was in a better situation financially, credit based and everything. And it took us at least probably about a month to get approval, both houses. And again, we were in better situations. His credit score was not that great and we still got approved. Just saying, when we honor God, when we are faithful, God rewards our faithfulness. And I said, well, husband, we should have tackled on that debt, honey, before 7 years if I would have known the Lord was going to open up doors like that. And y'all, when I say he opened up the door for this house, everything we asked for, well, not everything, let me take that back. We asked for $55,000 off the price of the house, and we asked for $25,000 on our closing costs. So the $25,000 was part closing, and some of it was to buy the interest rate down. And last year the interest rate would have been like 7%, and we bought the interest rate down to like 5%. Don't tell me. Honey, listen.
Everything just lined up from the sale, from the matter of fact, from the loan officer to the sales, to the building manager. Everything just lined up. And at that point, when everything was lining up, I knew at that point it was God. It was all God.
Yeah.
Which, God is going to be faithful to his promises. But as us, as humans, we have to do our part for God to honor his part.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna let that marinate a little bit.
Let it marinate, y'all. Sizzle, sizzle.
Remember, we have to do our part. It may not be how we want it to look, but we still have to do our part because integrity is gonna override everything. So we have to be intentional about the things that we're going to do for God, and we have to stand on it. Because if we stand on what we're going to do for God, God going to for sure stand on his promises. But we have to stand on it.
Because he don't lie.
Nope. So
that's kind of how that went. I got real serious about more knowledgeable about the home buying process, interest rates. Like my husband did all that with the first two houses. Well, no, this time it was me. I was doing all the legwork, all the research. I was doing all that. I started in with Dave Ramsey. So we have emergency funds set up. We have what the accounts called? Lord, I didn't draw a blank. What are the savings accounts called?
High yield
savings accounts that are, it's better than just a regular savings account, because with a regular savings account, you don't draw any interest. With a high yield savings account, you can draw some interest off your money. And so we got emergency fund now. We never had an emergency. First of all, we never knew about an emergency fund. We have an emergency fund set up with this time. We're definitely better positioned in this as homeowners this time. We have investment accounts set up for our grandchildren. We've never had that for our children, Lord. We sorry, children. We got maintenance accounts. Like we got money we be putting up, because you never know what's gonna happen. Now, do we have all the money put up that we want to have put up? No, it's a process. But again, we're financially, we knew we needed to be much wiser this go round. Because when you know better, you do better. And once upon a time, we did not know any better, but we know better now, which is how we can share with you guys. Get you a high yield savings account. Take your little money, honey, out the little regular savings accounts and go find you a high yield savings account. Put your money there. And the interest you draw off of it every month, you can just continue to let that just stack up. Because if you can draw, let's say you got $1,000 in your savings account at Bank of America and it's drawing any interest. And then you put that same $1,000 in a high yield savings account that might draw 4% interest. Now you've gained, what is that, $4? $4 a month off of $1,000 versus $0 by having it in a bank. I don't want to say no bank name, but I apologize. In a bank that don't have any interest. it doesn't yield interest for your money.
Yeah, it only yields, you know, probably 0.50, you know, 0.20 versus where, you know, if you get certain banks, they're going to offer you 4.0, you know, 4.5, you know, on high yield. So, you know, you can see your money, you know. If you,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
If you're drawing $30, $40 a month in interest times 12, hey, you know, that's your emergency money. It's just steady stacking. So, you know, just let it grow.
So we purchased last year in September. We're here now. What is this, Lord? June. Still ain't been on no vacation. We just not fixing to go on vacation, honey. We have a travel fund where we put X amount of dollars in this account every month. So when it's time to travel, the money we have in the travel account, that's what we're going to spend. We're not putting no vacations on credit cards anymore, guys. We're not doing that anymore. I don't want to hear nothing about, on my credit card, you know, I get cash back, reward points, travel point. If you're not going to pay it off when you come back, then I don't want to hear it. Because all this interest we're paying. Now, do I have some stuff on credit cards, me and him? Yeah, we got back into it a little bit. But we don't have a lot. Like, we ain't nowhere close to, it's something we can go on and pay off, truth be told. It's not a lot. And so anyway, we wanted to share that with you guys. That's kind of, you know, how we started, where we are now. Again, he's back at the post office, doing great. I'm still a cosmetologist, doing fine. And so, yeah, there you go. And so, again, like I said, I'm going to post some pictures of us from the beginning to the end, you know, so you can see our different little phases of transition in our marriage or whatever. And thank you so much, guys, for tuning in, for giving us your ear, because you didn't have to stop by. I appreciate you. If you know anybody that anything we've said today, if you know anybody that it will help them in their situation, please share this video with them. I will come back on later. I've said that. I'm going to have another episode with me and some wives. You know, we're going to get to it because there's not enough wives that's being transparent in their marriages. Okay. And again, thank you so much. You got something to say to the people, husband?
Share it with your husband. You know, maybe y'all may want to start a little something. But, you know.
Share it with your wife because it might be a man listening.
Yep.
Share it with your wife. Again, thank you guys so much.